Hi everyone, welcome to my studio in West LA. So today we're going to work on the dreaded white pant. And if you don't know already, you should always ask for your samples in the lightest color for the same reason people wear black a lot. The lighter colors show every problem, whereas darker colors will camouflage them. So the problem that I see mainly is this drag line here and collapsing at the back knee. The side seam does pitch forward a little bit at the top, and then there's all these horrible, they call it whiskering, but that just means the pant's not fitting well. And the waistband isn't contoured enough. It's sitting away from the body at the top. So this is a low-rise pant, but your inseam is also too far forward, which is part of the problem with this excess fabric here causing the whiskering. So what I like to do is just cut along the inseam and the rises and then repin it on the body or the form to balance it. And I'm gonna cut it real quickly now, so bear with me. So I cut all the way up to the hip, and hopefully that's enough to balance the sample. So the first thing I do is pin the rise in the correct position. So when I pick up the back, I just position it where there are no more drag lines here. And when I pin it up, I want to make sure that the inseam is hanging down straight. So I had to create an angle at the back seat and pick up more at the rise than at the outseam to swing the leg back into place. And now I'm gonna pin down the leg, connecting things back and front and hoping that a lot of the issues have been resolved. So again, I always leave that seam allowance so I can pin the other piece, the other panel to it. That way you're not losing any of the fabric when you pin it back together, and you can see how the pattern actually fits. Otherwise, you'd be pinning away too much fabric and the sample won't actually reflect where the cut lines are. All right, so you can see how much better the wearer's right side is compared to the left side already. I still see some drag lines here, a little bit of fullness. So I'm just gonna pick it up a full inch. Here, which means I have to drop it an inch at the inseam here. Otherwise, all this extra fabric just kind of puddles under your body. So as you can see, there was a lot of fabric I had to pin out just to get this pant leg balanced and not have too much excess in the back thigh. So as I'm pinning, I noticed that the back leg now wants to swing really far forward at the bottom at the inseam. Kind of hard to tell from there, but that means that the whole back leg now has to be picked up, not just at the rise. So I'm going to adjust that now. So now I've picked up the back leg, an inch at the rise, an inch at the middle of the leg, and blending to half an inch at the outseam. And hopefully that has picked up the leg enough so that it doesn't swing forward at the bottom. So this is why I like cutting and pinning my corrections, because a lot of people might have just been pick up the back leg half an inch and let's see the second PP sample. But a lot of times you don't have enough time to see another sample and make big corrections. Hopefully with these corrections, the next sample will look pretty good and I only have to make minor adjustments. So there, got rid of the drag lines, got rid of the collapsing at the back knee, and the front rise sits smoother against the body. I just feel like overall this pant's a little bit big. It could be a design call out, but since this fabric stretches, I'm just gonna pin out what I would do. And since the inseam looks pretty good, I'm going to take it out from the outseam. So I'm still pinning on the seam allowance so I can see just how much I want to take off. That's where the seam would be, and all this is how much I'm taking off. A lot of designers kind of have like a magic number that they want the leg opening to be at, or it's kind of like, say you worked at Levi's and that was their fit, that the leg opening's a certain number. So I'm going to play around with it so that it blends back to 0 at the hem. Okay, so to me that is a much better fitting leg. It's more flattering. You can see now that the inseam sits a little lower than the outseam. I would measure that up from the floor and make sure it's perfectly level. And now all I have to do is fix the waistband. So the waistband side seam is about an inch forward of the body side seam. I guess that's so that this trim doesn't vanish into the side when you're looking at the garment head on. Make sure that your zipper enclosures are still right at center front. You could even take out a little bit from the body. So I'm going to do it behind the side seam so the seam allowance doesn't get in the way. Remember I said in the beginning that the side seam kind of swings forward at the top. This pinning out from the back will correct that. Alright, so overall, the front didn't have too many problems to begin with. I did correct the front rise. The waistband sits better against the body now. And the back leg looks a lot better. I'm going to show you now how I would correct the pattern. So with a white sample, it's very easy. You just mark where you want the changes to be based on where you pinned. I actually want to show where the back rise has to drop. So this is where the front rise is. I just draw that line. After you mark the front, you can see that you have to drop the back to match it an inch. When you're doing a pickup, do it on both sides of the pin. So at the bottom of the leg, I need to add 1.5 inches to the back inseam to match the front. You can write it down on paper. I actually just like to write it right on my garment. It's a lot less on the outseam because I only picked up the back at the outseam 1/2 inch, and I'm adding 5/8 inch at the bottom. And then all the seam allowance I mark. You can pretty much feel where the seam is, but I still like to visually check. I'm going to stop marking here because I'm blending to 0 at the sweep, at the leg open. Okay, now I'm going to unpin everything and show the pattern maker overseas the corrections I want. Okay, so I've taken all the pins out, and I'm just going to take close-up shots of all the changes I want. Front and back. And you try to lay the garment as flat as possible when you don't have the actual pattern to work on. So here is the front leg with the corrections. I've decreased the width, and I've dropped the front rise at the crotch point and decreased at the top of the waistband. This is the back leg. I've picked up the back seat, and I've dropped the rise and decreased at the outseam. Thank you for joining me today, and if you found this video helpful, please hit like or subscribe.